welcome back. You are listening to Nate the Hate on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And if you would like to support the channel, we have a Streamlabs link in the description below. Donate any dollar amount, ask a question, we will answer it at the end of the episode. We also have a YouTube membership link in the description where you can become a YouTube member and embrace the hate, where you will be given advance notice to each episode we record and be given an opportunity to ask questions there as well. And with that, let me welcome in my co-host, Modern Vintage Gamer.
What is going on, Nate? It's great to be here. There is a lot of stuff we need to talk about in today's episode, so why don't you let the fine folks out there know what's going on? Big stuff happening.
It is big stuff. We have the first Nintendo Direct of 2026 happening, and we're going to give our predictions as to what we anticipate will be shown in this Nintendo Direct, and hopefully how this Nintendo Direct can begin 2026 with strong momentum for the Nintendo Switch 2 as we look to the next big releases coming to the platform. And I think this partner Direct has a strong possibility of showcasing some exceptional games coming to the platform and third-party games that individuals are going to be interested in. Because when you look at the past, be it N64, GameCube, Wii U, a lot of people would have been vocal about the lack of third-party representation on those platforms. And with the Switch, things began to change. We saw support from studios like Take-Two. Rockstar even showed up on Switch. And Rockstar has already made a presence known on Switch 2. And now Switch 2 has companies like EA, Take-Two, 2K. All of the major third-party studios are supporting Switch 2. And that's exciting for gamers. And finally, we might have partner showcases that headline prominent third-party games that gamers want to play. And I think this is going to be that first sampling of some strong third-party support that we're going to see on the Nintendo Switch 2 throughout 2026.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we kind of touched on it in the last episode that third parties are going to start having a much larger presence on Switch 2, and that has already begun. And I think the momentum and the drive for that is going to continue on. And what better way to really kind of let everyone know what third-party output looks like with an early directive this year. And I think it's going to be a big one. I'm not pulling any punches here, Nate. I think there's going to be some big announcements this year that really make a lot of people happy and kind of solidifies the third-party push on Switch 2, which was something that we desperately wanted to see on the Switch, but for whatever reason, we can never quite get there, whether it was, the games were too ambitious or the hardware was too, not good enough to run the games. But I think a lot of that has been eliminated now, and we're going to see some big announcements.
Agreed. And we're going to jump right into our Nintendo Direct predictions. And the first studio I want to start with is Atlus. As we talked back in our Nintendo 2026 predictions episode, I had heard that Metaphor ReFantazio is Switch 2 bound, and I think Atlus will show up at this Nintendo Direct and announce that Metaphor is coming to Switch 2. And ideally, it would be a first half of 2026 release. I think that would be a very strong game to start the year for the platform and show that Atlus is serious in supporting the platform. And I think it would excite a lot of fans of the JRPG genre, and people will revisit this Game of the Year candidate.
Yeah, I like this one. I have not played Metaphor, but I know people that have, and they talk extremely highly about it. And it was always a question of, well, this game is coming to the Switch too. I feel like a lot of people are in agreement with that. So I'm in agreement as well. I think Atlus will show up with this game. It's a good one. And it's a statement game from them that, hey, this is going to be a very successful generation for us on Switch 2, and having Metaphor on there would be a big announcement. So I'm all in on this one.
I do wonder whether or not Atlus could show up with something else, be it a Persona 5 Switch 2 edition, some of their other iconic franchises, but I think Metaphor ReFantazio will likely be one of their primary focus as far as titles to bring to the Switch 2 this early in the console's life cycle. Whereas if you want to do some ports of older games, be it like a Persona 5, Switch 2 edition, maybe that would come later, but I would imagine Metaphor is their focus right now. And then naturally, we do have other games that could come to Switch 2 in the distant future, be it Persona 6 or the Persona 4 remake that they announced last year at the Xbox showcase. But beyond that, in terms of Atlus presence here, Metaphor is all I'm expecting at this point in time. But now we have to go to Bandai Namco, because Bandai Namco in early 2025 announced a huge game for Switch 2, a game that they thought would launch last year, and then the game was demoed at several conventions, and the impressions were less than stellar. And I'm talking about Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, which ended up being a very accurate name for the game considering the performance people were reporting. Towards the end of 2025, they came out and said, we're delaying the game. Didn't speak on it anymore. But I think this direct is that moment for them to make a statement, come out, say we've ironed out the performance issues. Elden Ring is coming out on such and such a day, and confirm to the people it's coming out soon, because Elden Ring is one of the best games of the generation, one of the best games of all time. It needs to have that performance update. It needs to perform well. And if it can come in at a reasonable price, potentially they could lure me in to double dip on this game.
See, you bring up a really good point on this. I think if Elden Ring comes in at a good price, I checked the other day. I was going through my PS5 games that I've completed, and I have 202 hours on Elden Ring on the PS5. I've beaten the DLC, the Shadow of the Erd Tree, and this is far and away the most amount of time I've spent on any game ever, I feel like. At least it's definitely up there. And I didn't necessarily think I would double dip on Elden Ring because of how much time I've spent playing that game. And I've kind of done everything I could possibly do. But if they come in with Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, and it does show well at this Nintendo Direct, all of a sudden, and the price is reasonable. Let's say $40, $50, around that mark, right? I may jump in and take another look at it. It could potentially make me want to double dip. But I think the game will be at this showcase. They were, you're right, like when they showed it off last year at the various trade shows, PAX, I believe, Gamescom was the other one, where the game did not present well. You could tell that it was, the performance was not where it needed to be. And quite rightly, they just kind of pulled it and they haven't talked about it since. So I do think that they're ready to show us the game and how it is running so much better than it was previously. I think they've probably worked really hard on this game to get it running well on the Switch too. So if the price is right, Nate, I'm with you. I may jump in and double dip on this, but if they come back at $70, I'm probably gonna skip. But hopefully not. Hopefully it's priced well.
Yeah, if they came in at a full price $70, I would definitely have to dismiss the release, at least for the time being, until I start heavily discounted, because it is one of my favorite games to ever release.
Now, here's a question. What if it's we already know what it is, but what if it's the game plus DLC?
Even then, it has to be discounted for me.
Yeah.
We know what it's coming with content-wise. We know it has some new content, I say in air quotes, as we have some new armor types and classes and such, but that's not going to sway me to pay more money for at the core of the same game. And what I am kind of anticipating from the Direct in relation to this game, if you recall, when Dark Souls came over to Switch, they released an amiibo.
They did.
I'm thinking they release a Elden Ring amiibo of some kind for Elden Ring Switch 2.
I could see that. I'm
not sure what they would choose to make as the amiibo. Maybe the pot, That'd be kind of humorous.
They could do the pot. They could do what was the name of the boss that just like would destroy you, like one of the later end game bosses, the one that they nerfed, the one that they patched a few times. Michaela?
No,
not Mikola.
Melania.
Yeah, Melania, that's the one.
Mm-hmm. She would actually be an awesome looking amiibo. I was also thinking maybe the Turtle Pope.
Yeah, the Turtle Pope would be good.
It'd be kind of funny. But there's a lot of options they could do if they were to do an amiibo for this. But I think based on history, I'd be very surprised to see FromSoft not take advantage of a amiibo opportunity just based on what they did with Dark Souls. And that amiibo became somewhat rare for the Praise the Sun. And they could even introduce some unique mechanic with the amiibo. But then, see, now that price starts going up.
Right.
You know, $40 for the game, $35 amiibo.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm out of the amiibo craze. Unless this amiibo did something truly spectacular, I wouldn't have interest in it. But I think it would be a cool release just for the game, even from a collectible standpoint.
What if it summoned a Mimic Tier, which was arguably the most overpowered item in the game?
And I used it every opportunity I could. Especially when I had the sword with the blood damage. And
just the Rivers of Blood swords.
Yep. You could just melt bosses with those double team.
I'm telling you, if the price is right, Nate, I could go back.
I think I just talked you into buying Elden Ring Tarnished Edition for your Switch too.
It has to present well, and it has to be priced well.
Now, beyond Elden Ring, do you think Bandai Namco shows up with anything else in this Direct for Switch 2?
Well, they did announce a new Ace Combat game last year, I believe, at the Game Awards. And I'm curious whether that will be announced for Switch 2. But I think if not, then maybe Ace Combat 7 will see a Switch 2 edition, because that was a really great port on the Switch. I think it surprised a lot of people, and it sold particularly well. I think it sold better than what people expected, and overall it was considered a really surprising port. I wouldn't call it an impossible port, but it was a very solid port of the game that did do pretty well. So I'm just going to go out there, Nate, and throw out that Ace Combat 7 will see a Switch 2 edition. I think the new Ace Combat game was announced for PS5, Xbox, and PC. There was no Switch 2 announcement. As far as I know, there wasn't. I don't think there was. But that's not to say it won't come later on. But I don't know, I like Ace Combat 7 Switch 2 edition for Bamco at this Nintendo Direct.
I mean, definitely, a good argument to be made there. And a game I would love to see happen, though I don't think it will, just because I think it's a little too much FromSoft presence, is I would love to see Armored Core Fires of Rubicon come to Switch 2. I played it on Xbox Series, beat the game 2 times. It has multiple endings.
Yep.
And I love that game. To be able to play that type of game in a portable setting would be very appealing to me, but it has the same stipulations as Elden Ring and other late ports would have. It has to come in at a reasonable price. So I don't think Fires of Rubicon will come to Switch 2, but if it did make an appearance, it would definitely pique my curiosity, again, for the right price.
Yep, agree.
Now, I want to go to Bloober Team because they have been teasing several announcements on their social media channels spanning the last few months. And they have talked about how they are making a game for Nintendo. I believe it's Project M, where they said it's going to kind of bring back that classic horror feel similar to like Eternal Darkness. They've made numerous references to various horror games from previous generations. But beyond that, there's very little information known. Do you think this would be the venue for them to debut this new game?
Yeah, I kind of do, actually. I think the success they had with Chronos and the Switch 2 version of that game definitely has a lot of fans, and I think it sold better than expected as well. I mean, it wasn't a massive seller for them, but it does have its fans, and it did do a decently good amount of sales. this kind of makes sense for me that Bloober would show up with their new game. They've been, like you said, they've been teasing it, Project M, and there's all sorts of cryptic stuff that they're talking about with this. So yeah, why not? Like this is a good medium, good platform to show off what they're working on.
Yeah, Bloober has definitely kind of solidified their place in gaming right now following the success of Silent Hill 2 Remake. And now people are really paying attention to them. As you said, they did put out Chronos last year. I haven't played that game. You did.
I did.
You enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, it's a fine game, and I do recommend people checking it out as well. If it, I know it's been on sale a couple of times, but check it out. I think they do good work, and Bloober's been, like you said, they've been successful with Silent Hill, which was good, but I think they're making a push to kind of distance themselves from. We're just not a studio that ports games or remakes games. Like we actually have our own games and our own stories to tell, and they've done that in the past, obviously with their previous games. But I think this is really a push now to really solidify, them as a studio that really is known more than just for the Silent Hill 2 game. So yeah, I think this is a good pick.
And they did put Layers of Fear on Switch 2 late last year, where it had Lumen support with Unreal Engine 5. And the performance actually held up reasonably well. You can find Digital Foundry videos on the game. So I am curious as to what they will be able to build as a ground-up title for Switch 2, whether it's using Unreal Engine 5 or another engine, to see them take advantage of the hardware and see what they can deliver. Because, as said, they are gaining a lot of attention from fans in gaming, whereas you go back just a few years ago, Bloober was kind of to put it gently, a laughing stock, where Layers of Fear was not all that well received because there were certain sequences where streamers were laughing at the recycled animations or the jump scares. You could see them resetting themselves. And then Silent Hill 2, I remember putting out information how Bloober team was remaking Silent Hill 2, and you could still find a tweet, and the reactions were, "Oh God, no!
Yeah,
this has to be fake. Anyone but them."
Well,
and then
even
a year later, it came out.
Yeah, well, between the time it came out and the announcement, I think that first trailer they got criticized for because people were like, something looks off about this," and yeah, like there was just so many questions about Bloober, whether they were capable of doing achieving the assignment, right? But they managed to pull it off. They did a fantastic job, all things considered.
Oh yeah, masterfully. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a fantastic release of that game, and we know they are now working on the Silent Hill 1 remake. So they have the talent. Obviously, with Silent Hill 2, when you're building from, the blueprints of a masterpiece, it's easy to deliver a masterpiece.
Yep.
So when you're going on to your own projects like Chronos and the mysterious Project M, you're right to have a little bit of, hesitation to get too hyped. You really need to see if they're going to deliver on their own promise, their own stories. But I'd be interested if the game does show up here. I think it would be nice to kind of give Bloober that moment to highlight their original game that they are doing specifically for Switch 2 and Nintendo. I want to go to Capcom because Capcom has been a huge supporter of the Switch 2 in these opening months. Go back to launch, they had Street Fighter 6, they had Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, they have Resident Evil 9 Requiem coming at the end of the month alongside Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village or Resident Evil 8. They then have Pragmata coming out in just a couple of months. And I think they're going to have a presence in this direct. I think they're going to announce Monster Hunter Wilds. We've seen the leaks. We've seen the data mining. I think this is the proper venue to do it. The game came out around this time when it came out on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series and PC. So I think the timing aligns for them to announce this Switch 2 edition of Monster Hunter Wilds. And I think pending the performance, how much they had to scale back and do cutbacks to make the game viable on the platform. I think it could find success, especially in Japan. There's a lot of criticism around the game due to its depth, the systems, and just the overall appeal of the game. And I mean, there's no reason to assume Capcom has addressed those in any meaningful way. But I think just Monster Hunter coming to Switch 2 alone makes it attractive to a certain subsect audience. So I think this announcement makes sense in my view.
Yeah, I like Monster Hunter Wilds for this. For the same reasons as you were saying. It's the data leaks, the data mines, all that stuff that's been going on. It makes sense. And Capcom seem like they're locked into the Switch 2. They kind of got that early cadence of the day and date stuff with Resident Evil 9 Requiem, which, by the way, I think that's going to have a presence at this partner direct as well, at this direct. But yeah, I like Monster Hunter Wilds for this with this direct as well. I think it's going to be there.
So you mentioned Resident Evil Requiem. I think Pragmata is going to have a presence in this direct, and it's going to be Capcom announcing the public release date for the console demo so that individuals can play Pragmata ahead of its release coming up in April, because I'm really curious about Pragmata, and I've seen the gameplay videos, I've seen the trailers, I've read the impressions of individuals who have played it, but I still don't have a really coherent grasp as to exactly what the game is. I want to play it. I need to experience the in-game systems for myself so I can really walk away from it and say, okay, Pragmata is a game for me, because right now I'm undecided. I can't tell if the game's going to appeal to me or not. So I really need that demo, and I want them to announce that demo date as soon as possible, and I hope it is announced in this direct.
Yeah. What if they just say the demo will be available later today, which is, they do that a lot. Do you think that fits? Do you think that's possible with this?
I do think that's possible. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen here, and I would love for it to be available, immediately following the presentation. The only thing that gives me a little hesitation as to whether or not it would be at this event is that maybe Capcom wants to wait a little later into the year and time it closer to launch. So maybe they do it sometime in March, just to limit the gap between the demo release and the game's launch day. But I just want to experience the game, get a feel for it, and then I can get excited if it does vibe with me. But beyond that, from Capcom, I'm not really expecting anything else from them. I think Monster Hunter Wilds would be their statement of Monster Hunter is here, it's coming to Switch 2, and it's basically Capcom's way of saying, we're going to bring everything we can to this platform. It's very important to us. We view it as essential to us. And it also allows them to get a firm holding in Japan, because Switch 2 is blossoming in Japan and sales are going to do strong there. Now, I want to go to CD Projekt Red. There's been a lot of rumors circulating that The Witcher 3 is going to get brand new downloadable content. And I've said it before, I'm not a huge fan of The Witcher 3. I don't like the combat system. I've tried to play the game numerous times. It doesn't gel with me. But I believe you are a bigger fan of The Witcher than I am.
Yeah, I like The Witcher 3. I have beaten the game it was on the PlayStation 4. This was a long time ago, but I do like the game. I have played the Blood and Wine DLC, and I've heard the rumors of a Witcher 3 DLC. But I have to kind of counter that a little bit, Nate, and say I'm pretty confident that CD Projekt Red did mention that they were pretty much done with The Witcher 3. They closed the book on it and they were moving on to The Witcher 4 and whatever unannounced projects they currently have that's going on. Having said that, our last Nintendo Direct episode of 2025, which I believe was September, I did predict that there would be a Switch 2 edition of The Witcher 3. I still feel like there is a Switch 2 edition of this game that is in the works, because The Witcher 3 is one of those impossible ports that they had Nvidia and Nintendo help out with. It was on the largest cart size, 32 gigabytes, I believe. And there's something to be said about bringing a update of this game on Switch 2 that would have enhanced visuals, enhanced performance, maybe drop that DLSS on there as well, and have all the DLCs in one nice little bundle. And it wouldn't be something that CD Projekt Red would need too much time to stand up on the Switch 2. So I'm just gonna push the cart, down the road and say Witcher 3 Switch 2 edition. I'm liking it. I'm liking it.
Okay, I mean, I'd say that's a very interesting prediction. They've had big success with Cyberpunk on Switch 2, so to come in with really their second best-selling game of all time with the Switch 2 edition, and if they could have a retail release as well,
they could.
Definitely, I think it would lure in some people.
Yeah, we know that they like their physical products. So yeah, I could, a Witcher 3 Switch 2 edition with all the DLCs, which I think there's 3 DLCs to date. Give us that $40 price tag. Again, it's compelling. It's like Elden Ring all over again. It's like, do I go down this path again and start a new save file?
Mm-hmm.
Could see it.
I want to go to EA because EA so far they've been a modest supporter of Switch 2. They've brought over some games, Split Fiction, Madden, but they definitely have bigger games in their software catalog. And the games I want to see from EA are the Mass Effect trilogy with Mass Effect Legendary Edition.
Yes.
I want to see that game come to Switch 2. I think it's a perfect fit for the platform. It's still some of their most memorable and beloved games, the original trilogy of Mass Effect. And I know there's been some rumors talking about the Jedi games with Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. And I think all the games make sense to come to Switch 2, even though they are exceptionally late ports. But again, it comes down to how you package them and price them. With the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, I believe it was already a budget release on other systems. So if you can come in, it would have to be a game key card due to the size of the game. So maybe even digital only. But if you can come in with a ceiling price of around $40 for the Mass Effect trilogy, and then let's say you bundle the 2 Jedi games for around $40 to $50, I think that would be tempting enough to lure people in. I wouldn't be totally shocked to see Mass Effect come to Switch 2. Is this the proper venue to make the announcement? Maybe, maybe not. But I think it would be a statement from EA to bring that type of iconic Western RPG to the system, because EA has always been that company that you kind of question their level of commitment to a Nintendo platform. And I think them coming out with some of these backlog gems would kind of quell some of those fears that maybe EA is only going to be here for a little while, because we're going to get Madden on Switch 2 later this year, obviously. We'll get Football Club from EA as well. But they need to start bringing over some of their bigger games. I can't see Battlefield 6 coming over to Switch 2. We've played Battlefield 6. We went online. We saw the scope of the game. I just can't envision that running on Switch 2 competently, at least not competent enough that if I were EA, if I were the developers, where I would bring it to Switch 2 and not fear that I had to make compromises that maybe a bit of the vision or what makes it Battlefield 6 would be compromised too heavily. And if I'm compromising my vision of the game, you have to begin to question whether or not the release is worth it. Could it be done from a technical standpoint? Probably. Would it be a wise decision to do it? That's where the discussion has to come in. You also have to evaluate how much time would it do a port of Battlefield 6, and what is the selling potential on Switch 2 for a game of that magnitude, and how much are we going to invest versus that sales potential. For those reasons, I just can't see Battlefield 6 happening, but who knows, maybe EA will show up at this Partner Direct, announce Battlefield 6, and prove me wrong.
Yeah, EA is a difficult one to predict outside of the games that you mentioned, because Mass Effect Legendary Edition I think is a solid prediction, and I think it would really do well on the Switch too. The Jedi games, Jedi Survivor, and Fallen Order. Those games also, I could definitely see announcements for. But beyond that, what else does EA have, that would end up on the Switch 2, right? We obviously know about Madden and Football Club, as you mentioned. But if you look at their catalog of games, a lot of them haven't really gone very well. So obviously, the Dragon Age game, Veilguard, is something that would not come to the Switch 2. And then what else is there beyond that? Like, they have a lot of games that they've kind of tried to release and brought out over the years, and they just haven't really gone anywhere. And you have to question, well, what other games does EA have up their sleeve that they could probably bring to the Switch 2? And beyond, Madden and FIFA and Mass Effect and the Jedi games, there's not really much meat on the bone. Battlefield 6, yeah, I mean, possibly, could run on the Switch 2. I'm looking at the SteamDB play counts. It's still a very active community of players that are playing on Steam, which means that there's probably a lot of players on Xbox and PlayStation as well. So could the Switch 2 see a Battlefield 6 port? Yeah, it's possible, but I also question, is the Switch 2 the right platform for, a game of that caliber where there's literally 24-man battles and things like that are going on? It's something that I think would take a lot of testing and a lot of QA time to really kind of smoothen out that game on the Switch 2. So I think beyond Mass Effect, Nate, and the Jedi games, it's hard for me to see anything else from EA at this time.
Yeah, I think, EA, they're just not what they used to be. They put out the Dead Space game a few years ago. It was not well received.
See, that's the other thing. Like Dead Space, that did come out a couple of years ago, but it didn't do very well, all things considered. I think it didn't sell anywhere near as much as they were expecting, and that's the reason why we don't have a Dead Space 2 remake right now. I think it was really all about, hey, if Dead Space 1 does well, we're going to continue to make these. But it didn't, and development of that game has stopped. So that would be difficult for me to see on the Switch 2. I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully EA is able to bring something in their backlog. That's where I think Mass Effect or the Jedi games make the most sense, because we're going to get a third entry to the Jedi games. So bringing over the first two to Switch 2 at least creates a bit of an audience of interest. So when the third game does come out, maybe you created, a new market of sales potential by bringing that to Switch 2. But now I'm going to go to Konami. As we talked about in the 2026 Nintendo Predictions episode, Konami was considering, or had been considering and experimenting and testing Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta and Silent Hill 2 for Switch 2. As of this recording, these games have not been announced for the platform. But do you think either one of these potentially shows up at this partner direct?
I think the Switch 2 is capable of running Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill F. And I'm liking Silent Hill 2 on Switch 2. I think the port kind of makes sense. It fits. It would definitely need some reduction in terms of graphical fidelity, but I think it wouldn't need that much in order for it to run well on Switch 2. You basically really kind of rely on DLSS, which is the game on Xbox uses some type of implementation anyway. But I like Silent Hill 2 for the Switch 2, Nate. It's always been in the back of my mind that it makes sense as a port to the Switch 2. And I think, the game has its fans, and I think a lot of people would love to see it on Switch 2. So I'm liking it on Switch 2.
The one thing that kind of appeals to me and tempts me as far as a Silent Hill 2 for Switch 2 announcement at the Partner Direct is the close proximity the Direct has with the Silent Hill movie release that came out in the end of January. And the movie is Silent Hill 2 themed. So maybe there's a little bit of simpatico happening there, but could just as easily lead to nothing. As far as Konami goes, my prediction for them at this direct is going to be a brand new Bomberman game.
Cool. I'd love to see that.
I mean, Bomberman did exceptionally well as a launch title on the original Switch. They then came out with Bomberman R2 back in 2023, and a lot of people, I think, missed that release. But if they could come out with a brand new Bomberman game for Switch 2, there's definitely a market for it. Naturally, Bomberman's never a high-budget game, but so far the only game we have from Konami on Switch 2 is Survival Kids.
That's right.
Which was a launch game, digital only, which I can't imagine many people bought, if even were aware it came out on the system. So I would love to see Konami really embrace Switch 2 and bring some of their bigger franchises, be it Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, Bomberman, but something, make a presence for yourself. Because Konami is, I've said it before, Konami is back.
Yeah.
Konami is, they're refining their golden era of releases. So I'm hoping they have a presence here. And my prediction is, again, a new Bomberman game.
I like it. What about Castlevania? Anything Castlevania related?
Ooh. I mean, I'd love to see a new Castlevania game of some kind here. They've been very heavy with Castlevania in recent years. We had the Game Boy Advance collection, that trilogy. Then we had the DS trilogy, come out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I would love to see something related to a brand new Castlevania game here. But man,
I'm gonna just put out, because I'm just willing this into existence. I want the Rebirth series. I want to see those Rebirth games that came out on the Wii that have been locked on the Nintendo Wii. Castlevania Rebirth, Gradius Rebirth, and there was a third Rebirth game which escapes me, which...
Contra.
Thank you. Great games. Great games. Give me the Rebirth.
They were fantastic games.
Yep.
Those were fantastic games. And I remember being so excited when that era of digital releases were happening, where you were getting these specific releases
every week
from companies. Every week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something to look forward to. Little did we know they were going to be trapped on our Wii forever, but...
Well, I think the Rebirth series will be trapped no more.
I hope your prediction proves accurate.
I think I've been predicting the Rebirth series since we've been doing predictions episodes.
So
probably
like
not.
6 years.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it finally comes to an end and I can stop asking you, where's my Rebirth series collection? Like you asked me where Silent Hill 2 was for 2 years.
Hey, the fog has to live sometime.
Now, I want to go to Microsoft because they are now really the biggest publisher in the world.
They really are.
They have numerous studios under their umbrella. And we know that they do have games coming to Switch 2 this year. And of the announced games coming to Switch 2 this year from Microsoft, they include South of Midnight, Indiana Jones, and Fallout 4. Now, I think we absolutely see Indiana Jones. I think we get a release date for Indiana Jones. I think we get a release date for Fallout 4 because, as you know, Season 2 of Fallout concludes this week.
It does.
And I think it'd be very wise of them to take advantage of that timing. There's going to be a lot of buzz, a lot of discussion around Fallout. And what a better opportunity would be presented to you than to announce Fallout 4 is coming to Switch 2 on such and such a day during that same span. So I think those two games, I would say, are almost locks as far as being in this direct. Other games from Bethesda I think we have to at least consider is Elder Scrolls Oblivion. This is a game that I had heard last year they were working on bringing to Switch 2. Now we know the state of the game on PS5 and Xbox Series. It is less than stellar. But April will mark 1 year since Oblivion released on console. So I think announcing it for Switch 2 in this partner direct makes some sense, but they would have a lot of work to do in getting that game to run well on Switch 2 platform because they still haven't patched it on PS5 and Xbox Series or even PC, and that game still runs horrendously there. So if you were to bring it to Switch 2, it would definitely need a lot of work. I don't think we would see Starfield here, but there is another Bethesda game that we talked about in the predictions episode, and it comes from id, and that is Doom the Dark Ages. I am not anticipating Doom the Dark Ages at the Partner Direct.
Well, I
don't think the timing's right.
I'm going to counter you, Nate. So a couple of things you said there that I want to give you my takes on. I don't think Oblivion will be at this Partner Direct for the same reasons you said. I'm questioning whether Oblivion will ever release on Switch 2 for the reasons you said. And I say that because there's no technical reasons why it couldn't run on the Switch 2, but I think because they haven't patched the Xbox and the PS5 versions, it does give me some pause as to where this lives on the list of priorities that's important at this time. I think Oblivion is somewhere down the bottom half where it's like, we have more pressing matters to deal with right now. Announcing a Switch 2 version of Oblivion is interesting, but is it really going to, shake the foundations and make a statement that Microsoft is here on Switch 2? I don't think so. Some of the other games you mentioned, Indiana Jones, I think is you said it's close to a lock. I agree with you. The game has already been announced. It needs a date. I think we'll see more of that game on Switch 2, and I think it's going to be a good one. Fallout 4, you also mentioned. I think this is a coin toss. Again, it's something that's it's happening, but whether it shows up here, I don't know. It could show up based on what you said about the show. The timing is good, but it's also another one of those games where I feel like, is this the right venue to show off a Fallout game? We're talking about a Nintendo Direct. However, you did mention Doom the Dark Ages, and you're saying that maybe is not the right venue for it. I'm going to counter you and say I think it is. I think this is the statement game that Microsoft brings to this partner showcase and says, we have Doom the Dark Ages running on Switch 2. Look how beautiful this game is looking and running on Switch 2 hardware. And I might add, it's also the anniversary, since we're talking about various, tie-in anniversaries and things. It's the 35th anniversary of id Software this week. I think it's a great time to announce Doom the Dark Ages. There's been all these interviews with like John Carmack and Romero I'm seeing on Twitter. There's all this kind of hype about id Software right now. The momentum is high. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think Doom the Dark Ages is a Switch 2 partner showcase announcement. And I think it's front and center going to be the big thing that Microsoft shows us.
I mean, you do make a good point with the 35th anniversary. So there definitely would be, some reasonable expectation for Doom the Dark Ages to show up here. And I mean, I do believe Doom the Dark Ages will show up on Switch 2 at some point as far as an announcement in 2026. I still think they hold it for the DLC announcement of the game. And, if you're Microsoft, I think they would want to control that announcement. So maybe in June or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. But I definitely wouldn't be opposed to seeing Doom the Dark Ages appear in this Partner Direct. But there is another Microsoft game that we have to bring up because it has been at least rumored to be nearing release. And this comes from Jez Corden on Twitter. He has mentioned several times that Call of Duty is nearing release for Switch 2 in the coming months. Now, my estimation is if Call of Duty is coming to Switch 2 in the early portion of 2026, it kind of has to be announced now. Because if we get any deeper into the year, we're treading awfully close to when the 2026 Call of Duty will be announced, which is typically done in June. So if you want to release an older Call of Duty game, let's assume this is Black Ops 7, which came out in November of 2025, you have to do it before this year's Call of Duty gets announced and shown. Because otherwise, any hype or interest in a game is going to be immediately quelled. And I don't think there's that much hype around Black Ops 7 to begin with. The game came out, it underwhelmed, and we talked about this in the 2026 predictions episode of how poor last year's Call of Duty was. But for Call of Duty to be coming to Switch 2, I think they have to announce an older version right now. You can't wait any deeper into the year. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see Call of Duty show up here. We also mentioned, South of Midnight was announced for Switch 2 and PS5 back in December. I wouldn't be too surprised to see that get a release date or mentioned during this partner direct. I played South of Midnight last year. Beautiful game. I'm really interested to see how the game will translate to Switch 2 because the game had a lot of ray tracing. It took full advantage of HDR on Xbox and PC. So this game with its visual style could really pop on the Switch 2. So I'm curious to see how much they are able to maintain with this conversion. Otherwise, my only other predictions for Microsoft, and right now we already have a lot of Microsoft representation here, is maybe we see Overwatch 2 or Diablo 4, maybe even Age of Empires 2 or 4 get Switch 2 releases. And I think all of them make sense. They all have, mouse controls of some kind, and that would make it very appealing on the platform. But it feels as though we might have a little too much Microsoft representation with the games that we are predicting here, so we probably have to cut back a few. And I'd say the locks, again, for me at least, are Fallout 4 and Indiana Jones, and maybe I would include Call of Duty.
I think you're almost right. I would probably say Call of Duty for the same reasons. They have to show this, right? Otherwise, the more time you take, then you're pushing into this year's iteration of it. And we talked about it in the last episode that they have to put that stake in the ground and get that cadence going of the release schedule of Call of Duty. And it's going to be it's going to be difficult to start, right? But you have to drop Black Ops 7, as much as I hate that game, but you have to do it. Otherwise, you just run the risk of not making the cut. So I like Call of Duty. I like Indiana Jones. But my third game is going to be Doom: The Dark Ages instead of Fallout 4.
A fair substitution, I would say.
And I'm going to be checking out South of Midnight as well. I haven't played the game, Nate. I've been holding back to play it, hoping a Switch 2 version would come out, which has been announced. So this is going to be an absolute purchase for me when it does release. So I'm looking forward to that game.
It's a very fun game. The soundtrack is stupendous. One of the best soundtracks to come out of 2025. And the interesting thing about the soundtrack, just because you're not familiar with the game all that much, is the soundtrack actually expands upon the lore of the story as it's unfolding. So during boss battles, the lyrics of the songs playing in each boss encounter is relevant to that character you're fighting. It expands on why they are a villain, their backstory, and it's done just beautifully. Such an underrated game.
I can't wait. I'm excited.
Now, I want to go to Sega because Sega has been a very strong supporter of Switch 2 so far. And I think one of their sure things in basically every Nintendo presentation dating back to 2025 related to Switch 2 is that they always have a presence with a Yakuza or Like a Dragon game. And I see no reason for that trend to stop here. I think they will announce the next iteration for the Yakuza as far as older games coming to Switch 2. So be it Yakuza 4, 5, 6, one of the Like a Dragon games, something, because it feels as though every 2 or 3 months there's always another Yakuza Like a Dragon game coming to Switch 2. And I think that trend will continue. We have Yakuza Kiwami 3 coming out this month. So let's announce the next ones coming to the platform. So I think those make a lot of sense here. I'm also going to predict that we get a first look at the next entry to Sonic. So I think we're going to see the new 3D Sonic game here, which, for lack of a better branding, I will call it Sonic Frontiers 2.
Yeah, this is a surprise. Like, I wasn't really sure what Sega was doing with Sonic. So a new 3D Sonic announcement would be really awesome. I think that's going to get, Sonic fans out there, they are like,
well,
chomping at the bit.
They are, but there was also a lot of, I guess you could say, controversy around Sonic Frontiers.
There was like, controversy around it.
I platinumed the game. I actually enjoyed what Sonic Frontiers was doing. There was a lot of room for refinement.
Absolutely.
But it had a good foundation. So if they're able to build on the ideas that they introduced with Sonic Frontiers, expand on it, refine it, I think, I don't want to call it like Sonic Frontiers 2, but if you use that blueprint to build the next 3D Sonic game, I think you could build something really special. And yeah, I'm predicting that we see the next 3D Sonic game at this Partner Direct.
You'll also recall Sonic Frontiers on the Switch was not a particularly great port.
No, it was very rough. It had terrible pop-in. The draw distance was basically non-existent. It was definitely a game that if you want to experience, you had to play on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox.
Yep.
You got the general feel of it on Switch, but it was far from ideal.
So I'm with you on the Yakuza games. I like where you're going with the Sonic game. It's not something I would have predicted. I always, joke around and say I want a Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 collection. Again, like the Rebirth games, I've been predicting it for 6 years. It's never happened. But what about these Sega revival games? A couple of years ago, they announced, they were reviving some classic franchises. Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Golden Axe, I believe, was one.
Yep, and then it was Streets of Rage.
Streets of Rage, yep.
Mm-hmm.
What are we looking at there?
I would love to get a fresh look at some of these games. Naturally, I think it would be whichever ones are closest to release. And I think on some of the roadmaps we had seen in various leaks, I think that would suggest that the first games would have been Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
And I believe technically none of these games were ever announced for any particular platforms. So they could show up at anyone's showcases, whoever gets those marketing rights. So I would love to see Jet Set Radio or Crazy Taxi have a presence in this Partner Direct. The only thing that gives me a bit of pause here is that if you're Sega and I just gave you the next 3D Sonic game, maybe I'm not going to give you the first look at the IP Renaissance games. Maybe I would hold one for another, be it Sony or Microsoft at a later date. So that way I can kind of spread the wealth to my various partners instead of overloading one with everything. But yeah, I desperately need an update to those games. I want to see the progress that has been made so we have a good idea what to anticipate from them, because I don't want to say there's a lot riding on them, but those games represent a meaningful portion of some of Sega's legacy. So when you come out with a new Jet Set Radio or you come out with a brand new Crazy Taxi game, you're naturally going to spark and inspire a lot of interest from older gamers. But you also have to make these games appealing to the more modern gamer, that youthful market who's unfamiliar with them, because when's the last time we got a Crazy Taxi game on a home console? I believe the last mainline entry was Crazy Taxi 3 on the original Xbox, but we did have a PSP release of Crazy Taxi.
We did.
But we're still going back almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute. Yeah. But I would love to get updates on those here.
Yeah, same. Those games were announced. There was a lot of hype and excitement around them. The other thing I'd like is a new Virtua Fighter game, which is not Virtua Fighter 5. I feel like they've just paraded that game around literally for like the last 10 years on every single platform they can. There's nothing wrong with Virtua Fighter 5, but man, it's time for something new. Really
and it's
is.
coming to Switch 2 next month.
Yep.
So
it's not going to get announced here.
So if you're waiting for a new Virtual Fighter, has to wait.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I want to go Square Enix. Square Enix just released a massive title on Switch 2 with Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's well received in reviews, players, technically exceptional. And now it's for the next wave of what will Square Enix bring to Switch 2. And they will show Final Fantasy VII Rebirth here. Mm-hmm. They will give it a release date, have a brand new trailer. And last week it was reported that Square Enix was targeting a summer release for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on Switch 2 and Xbox. And to my understanding, that information is correct. I think we're going to see Final Fantasy VII Rebirth release sometime in June. I think it's going to be in close proximity to Summer Games Fest. And I'll tell you why I have this belief. I think by releasing the game in June around Summer Games Fest, it will allow Square Enix at Summer Games Fest to finally announce and give first details surrounding Final Fantasy VII Part 3. This way, Rebirth is out on all platforms. Now we can talk about Part 3, and then at that time, very likely confirm that Part 3 is going to be day and date on all systems. There's going to be no timed exclusive to PlayStation. It's going to release day and date on everything.
Even on PC?
Even on PC. Okay. I think they're going to target everything because they need all these platforms to get a game to find success at this stage, and there's no reason to stagger the releases anymore.
It's true. I mean, they've definitely had stumbles, especially with Rebirth, right? Like Rebirth didn't sell as well as they had anticipated. I remember it had some stumbles along the way. So I think this is the way to do it, right? You have this release cadence on everything on the same day to really maximize your sales output.
Yeah, let people choose the platform they want to play it on right at launch. And now that you've had the previous two entries on all the systems, people can decide which ecosystem or what platform fits their needs best. So that's my anticipation that we do get a trailer and a release date for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth here. I also think we get a release date trailer for The Adventures of Elliot. This was announced last year, and it was recently rated by the ESRB, so it feels as though the release for this game is closer than people realize. Not that I think many people remember the game from last year. This is the top-down Zelda-like clone that Square Enix is putting out. There is a demo available on the Switch 2 eShop if you haven't played it. But beyond that, I'm not anticipating that much more for Square Enix. Maybe they show up with like another niche game that, was on the Switch or something. But I'm not anticipating a look or an announcement of Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy 16 or Final Fantasy Part 3. I think their core focus is going to be dating The Adventures of Elliot and giving a trailer and release date for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and really maximizing the interest of Final Fantasy VII Remake as it just arrived on Switch 2 and Xbox in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sadly, there's no Ironhander and there is no Parasite Eve. And there is no...
And no Chrono Trigger.
Fencer Musashi.
You're just listing off a bunch of legacy Square games at this point.
Whoa. Brave Fencer Musashi is awesome. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it's a great game, but I mean, at this point, you may as well be listing The Bouncer. I mean, which one are we more likely to get a sequel to?
Neither of them.
Unfortunately, you're correct.
None of them.
Now, it brings me to Ubisoft, who, again, they've brought over Assassin's Creed, Shadows, they had Star Wars Outlaws, and as mentioned in the predictions episode, everything under their label is up for consideration in a Switch 2 port. With this partner direct, I'm kind of going in with no expectation from Ubisoft. I want to be surprised if they have a presence here. I would love them to take advantage of the Mario movie release coming in a couple of months and bring a Switch 2 edition of Mario Rabbids 1 and 2. Have mouse controls and bundle the two games together for a budget price and just generate and maximize the hype of the Mario movie to your advantage. Maybe I could see them announce something like The Division, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Maybe we could see Avatar come to Switch 2. We just had the movie come out late last year. If that's a port that is feasible, they could do, even though the game wasn't all that well received, but maybe there's interest to do it. Again, if Ubisoft can port it, it's under consideration. It's just a question of, will they end up doing it? So Ubisoft, I'm really in the dark here as to whether or not they will have any presence at all, but I hope they have some meaningful presence if they do have presence at all.
Yeah, it's a tough one to predict for the same reasons. Not to mention, obviously, the very publicized turmoil that they're currently going through right now. A lot of uncertainty surrounding that studio.
Mm-hmm.
What about a Zombie U port? How about that? Can I just put that out there? Zombie.
I would accept
Switch
that.
U2.
I mean, that name is just awful. But, I mean, they did bring Zombie U to Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and they just called it Zombie. And I mean, it retained the core functionality, you just didn't have the gamepad to cycle through your backpack and such. And I enjoyed it. I played on Xbox One. Game still had a nice little atmosphere to it. I think the game was unfairly criticized when it came to Wii U. I think people dismissed it. But I thought the game had a lot of good ideas going for it. And it is still one of the premier games that used the gamepad in a very smart manner and very intuitive manner at that. So I would welcome that type of port. I think most people would say, why did Ubisoft waste their time and money doing this? But if it came out for $15, I would buy it.
I'd buy
because
I'd buy it for $15.
Might be the only two, but
yeah,
I would definitely give it a play. Now, these are just going to be miscellaneous third-party games that could show up here. As you said, we've been going company to company. But we know Orbitals.
Wait a minute. We have to. I have to ask this question because people are going to want to know, Nate. People are going to want to know. Rockstar, where is Red Dead Redemption 2? Is it showing up?
Rockstar will announce it on their own terms. They're not going to do it in a direct.
All right. Because people are going to ask, because you say that every day you get asked this question. So
I do.
I just want to nip this in the bud right now. Red Dead 2 at this partner showcase.
I'd be very surprised to see Rockstar hand over an announcement like that to a partner. Rockstar likes to control their marketing. So I just can't see that happening. But yeah, now some like miscellaneous. We know Orbitals will be here. The developer kind of leaked their presence on a Chinese blog. So seeing Orbitals isn't going to be a surprise. Expedition 33, I think, makes a lot of sense to have a presence here.
Yes, for sure.
I'm going to say we get an announcement of Romeo is a Dead Man from Suda51 as an announcement at this partner direct. It's coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC later this month. So naturally, this would be a late port. But I think it's a good opportunity for them to announce intent to bring it to the Switch 2 at this time. I think we see Screamer. It's a arcade racing game from Milestone. Maybe make a presence here. Yeah. Marvel Rivals, I think, makes a lot of sense to bring to Switch 2, and this just feels like a good opportunity for them. Now I'm going to bring up two games that you may say, huh, when you hear them.
Okay, go on.
The first game, Stalker 2.
Huh?
The desired reaction. Actually, I'm going to add another game. I'm going to make it 3 games.
All right. Go on.
The second game, Death Stranding.
Well, Death Stranding is one of those games that there's been some rumblings about for a while.
Yeah, I think we actually put it in a predictions last year as maybe we could see Death Stranding come to the platform. It makes sense. Why not bring it?
It's on iPad.
It is. It's on iPad. It's on Mac computers. I mean, who's playing games on a Mac? Exactly.
You just offended the 5 people that use Max that listen to
I
this
know, and
podcast.
they're going to be in the comments section saying, "I do." No, you don't.
I like Death Stranding. Stalker 2 though, I haven't played Stalker 2. I was kind of hoping to check it out at some point. It's a game that I think it started out rough as far as its the various bugs it had, but I think we're past that now. It's been fixed. It's been patched well and truly. It is a game that I've been curious about. So seeing a Switch 2 version of this, I'd welcome it, and I would, much like South of Midnight Nate, I would wait for the Switch 2 version before checking it out.
Now, this final one, this is a game I've actually heard is coming to Switch 2. So the prediction is that it would be at this partner direct, but I have heard this game is coming to Switch 2 at some point. And that title is Black Myth Wukong.
Whoa. That's a crazy prediction to make.
Its release to Xbox is legendary.
Yes.
As you had countless rumors of, was the Xbox Series S holding it up? Was the Xbox Series S too weak to handle the game? And then the game came out and it performed well on Xbox Series S.
Yeah, it was fine.
It was fine, which then fueled the rumors that maybe there was an exclusive deal with Sony of some kind that was never public. So there was a lot of conversation and discourse around Black Myth Wukong when it came to PlayStation 5, but the game also exploded into a huge success. And I think Black Myth Wukong on Switch 2 has potential to be a huge success, especially in Japan. And if the game can run well and look visually pleasing, it really has great potential on the system.
I think Black Myth Wukong, if they can pull it off, has all the hallmarks of an impossible port.
I would agree.
I think it's in that conversation.
Yeah, and if they can pull it off and do it well, I'm talking, this is a competent release. The visual fidelity is there. The performance is solid. I think it would qualify as an impossible port. And again, this is a title I have heard is coming to Switch 2. And I would love to see it be announced at this partner direct, because I think it maybe would take people by surprise a bit. Of like, wow, you're getting this very ambitious Souls-like game coming to Switch 2. They just have to deliver on the performance. So very curious to see when we see that game become a reality. But now I want to go to a Nintendo presence in this direct, because even though it's a partner direct, Nintendo can still have a presence of kind, as it depends on the game. And, a game like Duskblood could potentially be here.
Yes, it could. I mean, again, kind of like Elden Ring, right? Like it was announced and we hadn't really heard anything about it since its announcement. And I think this partner showcase is a good place to give us an update on that game. I'm not saying it's going to get a release date. I mean, I'd certainly like to hope that it does, but we need to see more of this game, I feel like. So, yeah, I like Duskbloods for this partner showcase.
Another game I've been thinking of maybe could have a presence here is Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. It has sold exceptionally well, and if there's any DLC or new content planned for the game, I could see it have a presence at this partner direct as well to announce that new content. And technically Fire Emblem could show up here, and we do need a release date for Fire Emblem Fortune Weave. Maybe that would be held for a general direct as opposed to having it here. But I think Duskblood and at least Hyrule Warriors have realistic chances of having a presence here. By far not locks of any kind.
Right.
But they could get updates here. And, I hope they do. But on paper, when you look at this partner direct, let's say even 50% of the stuff we have predicted comes true. Do you think this is the partner direct that Nintendo needed to kick off 2026, or do you think they needed to go more?
No, I mean, I think if half of this happens, then it's still a very, very solid direct with some big announcements across the board. So yeah, I think this is good, right? Like there's a lot of meat on the bone here. Um, and if we get more than half, it's even better. But typically, when we do these predictions, we get some percentage, right? Like maybe 50, 60, sometimes 70%. So yeah, like I'm liking this, Nate. Like I think even if you just, cut this list in half, you can still walk away feeling good that this is a really solid partner showcase.
And naturally, there's going to be, things at the show that we didn't predict, things that are just impossible to predict from the various partners. So
I've got two more games that I wanted to bring up with you. One that is a will into existence, it might happen, and one is more of a question for you whether you think it's going to happen. The first one is Stellar Blade. I think well, what do you think about Stellar Blade for the Switch 2?
it feels like one of those games that if the publisher wants to bring it to the platform, that they will do so. There's nothing inherently about the game that I think is beyond the scope of what the Switch 2 can do. And we know the developer has been on Twitter saying, they gifted a bunch of employees a Switch 2 last year, and that led to individuals speculating that they must have got a dev kit. I don't believe that's ever been, confirmed. But Stellar Blade coming to Switch 2 definitely wouldn't surprise me. Even though I don't think the game was anything that special. I think the combat was fun. The story was atrocious. It was fine for what it was.
The other game, well, the other publisher that we haven't really talked about, or studio publisher, is Remedy. So they obviously have a lot of things going on right now. What about Alan Wake 2 for the Switch 2?
I would love to see that happen.
That's the one I'm trying to will into existence. And I kind of want you to agree with me and say it's happening.
I would definitely endorse willing it into existence. I think that would be a fantastic fit for the platform.
I agree. Like the first Alan Wake came to the Switch, it was not a great port, probably overambitious for the hardware. But Alan Wake 2 on the Switch 2, I think it makes sense. And Remedy really wants to. They need that Switch momentum. Like they've tried a couple of things, hasn't really worked out. They did the Control Cloud Edition and various other bits and pieces. I think you start with Alan Wake 2 on the Switch 2. Boom, you've set that cadence and you're off to the races.
See, with the sequel to Control coming out later this year on PS5, Xbox, and PC, I would even go as far as saying if you can't do Alan Wake 2, just from an optic standpoint, because they are stretched thin. They are working on, the Max Payne games, Control 2. Bring over Control. Bring the Control Definitive Edition with the ray tracing and everything. Bring that to Switch 2. Yeah. I think there's an audience for Control on the platform. Use that as your testing bed if you want to. And if Control does well, then you bring over Alan Wake 2.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see any Remedy game on Switch 2.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I know I'm probably willing this into existence, but I also feel like Remedy needs to. Well, they want to get their presence on the Switch 2. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Remedy wants to be on as many platforms as possible, and Switch 2 has to be one of them. They need to expand their scope and reach, and I think the Switch 2 audience would be something that they do want to get their hands on. And whether the introduction title is Control, Alan Wake 2, but something from Remedy, I would love to see come to Switch 2 in these opening months. And with that, we go to our Streamlab community questions. Again, if you would like to support the channel, we have a Streamlabs link in the description below. Donate any dollar amount, ask a question. We will answer it at the end of the episode. Donate $100 or more, and we will dedicate the episode to you. Our first question comes from Gib, who donated $10, and they write, "Great to have you back, Nate and MVG. Much love."
Thank you.
Then had a $5 donation from Uncario. "Hi, fellas. MVG question. There were indie studios that had said they didn't have dev kits. Then, within a month or two, a Switch 2 update would come. As a Switch 1, Switch 2 dev, do you have any experience as to how and why they can come so fast? Is Switch 2 porting that easy?
I have to be very careful about what I say because of NDA, but Switch 1 and Switch 2 inherently share a similar path when it comes to software development. We'll just leave it at that. I can't really elaborate on the specifics of it though, but yeah. Generally speaking, if developers have experience on Switch, then they won't have any issues on Switch 2.
You then had a dollar donation from Anonymous. Nate MVG, I'm calling you two out over Virtual Boy NSO.
Whoa.
I actually submitted a question about this possibility a bit ago due to the Nintendo Museum, but I recall you two chuckling about the idea and dismissing it. For shame.
Well,
I was ahead of the curb.
Well, you are the one that predicted it. You got this right. I will take the L on this one. But I will say I'm kind of excited about the Virtual Boy thing. It's going to be a fun little distraction from just the everyday, video game landscape that we have to deal with. So I'm into the Virtual Boy NSO. I have pre-ordered everything, so I'll be checking it out. I'm excited.
I think the promise of unreleased Virtual Boy games really elevates the appeal of it too.
Definitely.
Then had a $5 donation from Minato Arasado 5. Hey Nate, I was just curious if you have any information or predictions on game releases Atlus has planned this year for the Persona 30th anniversary. Also, have you heard anything about Persona 4 Revival coming to Switch 2? I have not heard anything about Persona 4 Revival coming to Switch 2, but I would be very surprised if Atlus didn't bring the game to Switch 2. As far as Persona 30th anniversary plans, I haven't heard anything. My hope is that we do finally get the reveal of Persona 6, because that has been a lifetime in the making. So finger crossed on that. We now go to the questions submitted by our YouTube members. And our first comes from Zombie Porin. How are third parties looking at the Switch 2 for ports of older PS4, Xbox One games? Would EA think it is worth it to port something like a Mass Effect collection to Switch 2? Or has it been too long for them to justify bringing back a team to port a game to only one console? Well, as we gave the predictions in this episode, I think a release like Mass Effect Legendary Edition would make a lot of sense for EA. It's a title that is well regarded. It also would fill a void on the Switch 2 software catalog. So I think select games from studios like EA or really any publisher, if there is a will to bring the game over to Switch 2, then they will consider it, and they just have to factor in cost and sales potential. But titles like Mass Effect, I think, definitely have a chance of coming over.
Yep.
Then I had a question from Fangs the Wolf 6459. A few months back, there was a rumor that there was a top-down directive from Disney to developers to port the games that use their IP to the Switch 2 ecosystem. Since that rumor came out, we have seen games like the Disney Afternoon Collection be announced for the system. Is there any truth to the rumor that Disney themselves are pushing for these types of ports to happen? And is there any truth to the Jedi Fallen Order games being among them? As far as the directive to force these types of releases, I haven't heard anything to support or dismiss the claims. As for bringing a game like Jedi Fallen Order to Switch 2, I would say, again, like we included that in the predictions episode, that if EA can do it, I think it makes a lot of sense to do it. But I don't have any information as to whether or not Disney can dictate such ports to happen. And that is the last question submitted by the community for this episode. Again, if you'd like to support the channel, we have a Streamlabs link in the description below. Donate any dollar amount, ask a question, we'll answer it at the end of the episode, or we have a YouTube members link in the description. Become a YouTube member, embrace the hate, and you can submit questions as well as get exclusive access to other content. If we hit 100 YouTube members, we will do a once a month live stream exclusively for YouTube members. And with that, I'd like to thank MVG for joining me as always.
Always a pleasure, Nate, and bring on the direct. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below as to what games you expect to make a showing at this Nintendo Direct. And if you liked the episode, give the video a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And with that, we conclude today's episode. We will be back with our reactions to the Nintendo Direct in the coming days. But until next time, continue to embrace the hate.
With Nate and MVG, dissecting all the lies. Make the hate rocket hard, MVG dropping knowledge bombs. This podcast sitting strong, guiding us where we belong. Through the pixels and the codes, breaking down what future holds. Nate and MVG showing us the gaming gold.